You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming More Me. Today's guest is Genevieve Piturro, an accomplished best-selling and 5-time award-winning author, inspirational speaker, and founder of Pajama Program. She believes in the power of purpose and the human connection, which led her to leave her successful career as a television marketing executive to start a national nonprofit organization. Her organization, Pajama Program, has now delivered over 7 million new pajamas and books to children in need through its 42 chapters across the United States. Genevieve is now an inspirational speaker and purpose consultant, inspiring individuals, groups, and companies to find their purpose and embrace the human connection for success. She also created the Purpose ACER business training program to help leaders align in the goals of their company and management with their employees' goals. Her book, Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas, How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning, shares her life and leadership lessons through the Pajama Program journey. It's an Amazon bestseller and the winner of 5 awards. She has also been a speaker on TEDx, and her talk, One Idea plus the Human Connection equals 7 million pajamas, debuted with her book. Her inspiring work has caught the attention of many local and national media outlets, including Oprah, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. She's received numerous awards for her work, including ringing the NASDAQ stock market opening bell back in 2016. Genevieve is a graduate of Fordham University and lives in Irvington, New York with her husband, Dimo DiMartino. Thank you so much for being here, Genevieve.
Oh, thank you, Theresa. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I would love it if you could start by just sharing a little bit about you, who you are, where you live, what you like to do with your day-to-day life.
Sure. I live in New York, right outside Manhattan, in the county of Westchester County. I am looking at the Hudson River from where I'm sitting talking to you. And it's a lovely day. And I love living in New York. There's so much, there's quiet, which people don't actually expect here, but there is. And then there's a hustle bustle of, everything from Broadway shows to, the claim to the best ice cream in the world.
Ooh, which one's the best ice cream? Yeah. Which one?
I would say either pistachio or salted caramel.
Those are good flavors.
We're
a big ice cream family over here. Is Serendipity, you think, is the best in New York?
It's one of the best. Yeah, it's one of the best in Manhattan. But in Manhattan, it's hard to say there's one best. I love
so much good food in New York. I gained 5 pounds just on a day visit. Like
New York and New Orleans.
It's so good. So you've always lived in New York, and that's great that you get to enjoy like the quiet parts of it and the hustle and bustle. I absolutely love taking day trips or weekend trips to the city. We're just in Maryland, like near the DC area.
Oh, you're close enough. Yes.
Yeah, close enough that we can come visit as often as we like to. And just such a feeling. If you've never been to New York City, you can't even explain it, can you?
Right. No, it's energy.
Yeah, it really, really is. And so what's your day-to-day life like there?
Well, right now, I speak as often as I can. So thankfully, I'm on planes again, which is really nice. During COVID, I was speaking virtually, but now I can get on a plane and I have some things coming up, which, are very exciting. I love to travel. I love to be in person. I missed that so much during COVID. I talk about the human connection. So it's like suffocating, like you're holding my, binding my hands behind my back to do to cancel a live event. So I'm happy about that. And I have some clients that I'm helping get through their chapter 2, find a purpose. Coming out of COVID, we all felt the same, reevaluating our life. Is this the right direction for us? And I'm happy to support when I can.
Yeah, that is awesome. What led you to follow your passion and start and outfit millions and millions of children in fresh PJs?
I never thought that I would be doing that. I never thought I'd be talking to you like this, Theresa. But after a little more than a dozen years climbing the corporate ladder, because I always wanted to work in Manhattan, in the world of TV. I wanted that corner office. I wanted to be that single woman with nothing holding me back, workaholic. And I was doing that. And I loved it. I have to say, I loved it. It was a good time to do that in New York City back then. But what I didn't count on was that little voice in me that I didn't even know I had. Forget purpose, never heard that word. But that voice that I didn't know, we have to listen to that. I would bet most of us just don't pay attention. But I heard that voice one day on a quiet afternoon in my apartment, and it asked me clearly, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough? And it spooked me first because I heard it from inside me. And seconds later, everything that I'd been doing just came to me in the answer, no, you're running yourself ragged alone in your mid-30s for money, to help other people make money, to live some kind of a life that you thought would bring you, the most success and the most fulfillment. But it's really nothing more than look around in your pretty apartment, those things that, are physical. And it dawned on me that maybe my Italian upbringing, I'm first of 4 kids, my dad off the boat from Italy, my mom Italian too. I guess they expected me to finish school, but then get married and have kids. That was the traditional way. And probably for most people, especially back then. And that was never the drummer, that I marched to. But I realized I would be alone if I didn't change things. And what was missing? And I immediately thought, children. And I also knew I couldn't just run out and, make a friend, marry a friend, have children, that there had to be a way that was right for me. And I grew up believing in God, and I said, okay, what am I supposed to do? I know that's not the path for me, the traditional way. And I remembered seeing a TV news report on children being, hurt, worse than hurt, by people who are supposed to love them and take care of them. And I know that the police went in and found this horrible scene. And I called the police and I said, I know this wasn't the only report. I know you've done this, gone into houses, apartments before in this city. Where do you take these kids? And they told me the name of some shelters. And I called them and I started going in and reading. They welcomed me sitting on the floor at night. The police or the social workers brought these kids in, and they were being processed, which is a horrible word for children, but that was the case. So I was keeping them nice and quiet and comfortable, as comfortable as they could be, because they were afraid, and they were wearing clothes that, you wouldn't put on your children. I would bet I wouldn't. They were old and some soiled and didn't fit well, but you could just see they were so afraid and so alone. I couldn't imagine what they'd been through. So they sat quietly and listened to me, week after week. And there were always different kids because it was, a revolving door, sadly. And one night I went to watch where the caretaker was taking them to go into another room to go to sleep. And when I peered in, it was an equally bare room to where I had been reading to them, sitting on the floor. They were sitting on the floor with me. And they were huddled on cots and on single beds, and holding on to each other, and some crying. And it broke my heart. Doesn't even do it. It was just like my stomach sank, and it was awful, awful. And I remembered my mom, and our bedtime was beautiful. Thinking back, which I had never done in 38 years, think about my bedtime until that moment. And what came out of my mouth as the caretaker was walking me back to the door to leave was, I said, can I bring some pajamas next time? And she said, oh, that would be lovely. No one thinks about pajamas. So I did. And all we could think of nothing other than how many pajamas. And I don't want to get too few, and I don't want to get too many boys if there are more girls. So I overdid it. And I brought bags and bags of warm new pajamas. And after I read, I put them out, and I started to hand them out to the kids who were, quiet all night, still quiet. And they took the pajamas, except one little girl was so afraid. And she didn't want to take them from me. She just kept shaking her head no. And I didn't know why. I didn't want to push her. And so I went on to the next child, and I saw her stay and watch me with her caregiver. She clearly was curious and she wanted to watch me. And it was just her at the end after I gave the last child a pair of pajamas. And I went back over and I had held the pajamas I wanted her to have. They're pink. And I said to her, honey, these are really for you and you can keep them forever. And they're pink and you have pink in your shirt. You know, her clothes were dirty and tight. And I tried to gently convince her. And, you know, I was kneeling down to be closer to her height. And she just looked at me and she whispered, what are pajamas? And that knocked me off kilter. That just was like something sharp right into my chest, right into my heart, because never in a million years would I've ever thought a child would ask that. That wasn't, not only wasn't it my world, it wasn't even something I could fathom, a child not knowing. And it just didn't leave me. I explained to her as sweetly as I could what pajamas are, that you change and that you don't have to wear the clothes you wear all day, you know? And I asked her, what does she wear to bed usually at night? And she just pulled on her pants and she just shrugged and she said, my pants. And then I just handed them over to her and the social worker who put them on her in the other room. And then the little girl leaned back out to see if I was still there. And she gave me a little smile in her pajamas. And if I wasn't done before that, I was done. There was nothing else I wanted to do with my entire life was then, you know, repeat those moments.
Mm. Oh, that got me.
Still gets me. Still gets me, Theresa. Still gets me. And I speak on stage and it still gets me.
So you have this experience. And then what happens? Do you keep doing this? Do you start writing your book? What happens next in this chain of events?
I start running up credit cards and not telling anyone. I started
buying all the pajamas in the world. Yeah. You actually bought all 7 million pairs, right?
I can tell you that I would get lots of looks from people online when they saw my carts, you know, dragging carts and attaching them to each other to go to the checkout line. Like there was a fire sale because I was in a hurry to get them out to the kids. I had lists and lists by, you know, every day. As soon as I brought them to a new place, that caretaker told her friends who were at other places, hey, there's a lady giving pajamas for the kids. They'll call her and here's her number. And I couldn't refuse. So I did. No kidding.
You're pouring all of your own money and your own time and everything into this project.
I had nobody else's money. Yeah, it was all my money. And I made a mess. I didn't tell anybody because what do you tell them? I rehearsed a million times in my mind. What do you tell people that doesn't sound like, you know, you're off your rocker? You know, I want to give all these kids pajamas and I know I'm not showing up for work as much as I was. I know that they know something's wrong and I know I might get fired and I can't afford to quit. And, you know, now they're taking away my credit card and I can't tell anyone. I worked so hard. What am I going to do? I had a mortgage. How am I going to pay my mortgage? So it, you know, and I wasn't young. If I was 21, maybe I would have given myself a break saying, you know, okay, what do I know? I'm 21, but I wasn't. I was 38 years old. I should have known better is what I told myself. So I kept it quiet and I, you know, and I made it messy, but they didn't take me to jail or anything like that. but
your inner critic was giving you a hard time.
Oh my gosh. You know, you're so, you know, you're so dumb. You're so, you don't know what you don't know, blah, blah. So anyway, I kept it quiet for a while and I kept trying to show up for my job, but they knew something was wrong. And I had suitcases full of pajamas and I told them I was going out of town. You know, and I started to hear myself. I said, oh my gosh, how is anybody going to believe me? I'm making a mess. So, you know, finally, when I decided to tell one girlfriend, you know, she was not the right one, apparently, because she challenged me. She said, you think you're saving their lives? This is such a little thing. And you're going to throw away, you know, more than 12 years of climbing to get to that office. And you've got this and you did this. And how are you going to pay a mortgage? And it was like bullets, just bullets. And I already had 2 glasses of wine because I didn't expect her to say, that's great, I'll invest. But I didn't expect her to shoot me down either. And
she pretty much materialized the voice that was already inside of you beating you up.
Yeah. And it was awful. And it took me a while to come back from that. Meanwhile, I was racking up more bills. So a lot of things happened, but I just felt this was mine to do. And I did meet a great guy, and I'm still married to that great guy. And he was one of the probably the first one to really say, when I delicately told him, I don't know what's going to happen.
You were the crazy pajama lady.
This is what I'm doing, and I'm probably going to lose my job if I don't quit first. And I don't expect you to be here because you can't, he couldn't afford to support me. And I expected him, half of me expected him to leave, but he said, go for it. He said, go for it. One step at a time, we'll figure it out. And we did, and I write about it. I'm very honest, because over the years, Pajama Program officially began in 2001, and unofficially I'd been running around like a crazy woman for a year and a half before that. So we are thankfully, doing well. And as you mentioned, 7 million pajamas and lots of chapters and people.
And almost 25 years.
Almost. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
awesome.
And, 5 years ago, I wanted to write my book and I wanted to speak. And so I gave my salary to our new executive director, who I trusted completely. She was president of our board, and she can just do a better job with all the legal, and she can handle the business. I felt like I just wanted to give the pajamas. I just wanted to tell a story. I just wanted to tell people where their money was going to go, and come with me, and you see these kids, and you're going to feel the same way I did. And I'm glad that got us up and going for many years and got our story out there and opened me up to what really purpose is. And nobody asked me or suggested that I look for purpose in work, which I tell everybody, over the age of 10 now, because it makes a difference when you have a North Star. It makes a difference, and then you don't look back 38 years in and think, okay, now what? Because most people are afraid to jump, and I was, and most people are.
Yeah. That's usually when you know that it's really good. There's a little bit of fear mixed in, and some, uncertainty, because there's uncertainty no matter what you choose to do, whether it has purpose or not. So leaning into that's so cool. And then when did you start going on the TED Talk circuit, or did you just do one TED Talk?
I just did one. I did it to accompany my book. I wanted to write my book. Little did I know, everything was all planned out perfectly, that it was COVID around the corner. So I still felt something in me, and I learned to trust myself a lot more. Still not completely. I still, have to learn to do better. But I did feel that leave the date the way it was. I told the publisher, leave the date because there's a reason for that date. And as it turned out, purpose was what people were looking for. And so my book resonated, even though it made me nervous for it to come out in quarantine, and I had to do a virtual launch. I had to cancel all my in-person stuff, and the TED Talk too got canceled in person. First, the TEDx people said, nobody do any talks. We'll just wait it out. Then waiting it out had no known ending. So they said, okay.
Too many people had too much to say.
Here's the logo. We want you to go on. You were scheduled. Do it, and they gave us parameters, and we did it. So it came out, you see me in the office with office behind me. But it was the TED Talk that we all did the best we could during that. So it just accompanied my book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's an interesting time to release that. And I think it's so interesting. I'm calling all these authors into my space here on the podcast, and I just started writing my first book. So I know that I'm getting so much wisdom and guidance through these awesome interviews. What was the book writing process like for you? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
Well, I had tried at least 5 times before I asked for help, and before I got an editor who gave me a timetable, because there was always a reason not to write. Mm-hmm. It was hard. Some of it was difficult emotionally for me to write. I had to choose some of the stories of the kids I wanted to use. It was also tedious to get the exact timeline. So I had to really go back to the newspapers of what was happening, that I only had a general idea of the recessions, and when I was on this show with this host, what year was it, put it in a timeline, which was really important to me, because that's how I wanted to tell the story in the time that it happened. So it was tedious. And before I had anybody giving me a schedule or being accountable to anybody, I had a lot of starts and stops and a
Yeah.
lot of revisions. And then I think everybody needs to be accountable to someone, whether it's a professional person or someone who knows, maybe who's written a book. And I always offer myself, I'll help anybody who wants to have a session. I'm happy to do that.
I'm
So the
chuckling because so
deadline,
much of this is resonating, and I did like
okay, so
hire
call
an
me.
accountability coach because I was like, I've started and stopped so many times. So
Yeah,
everything you're saying
yeah,
is like, uh-huh, yep.
yeah, yeah. So that helps a lot. And I'm there for you or anybody who wants any of your listeners.
Thank you.
But sure. But that really, really helped. And I'm a good writer, not fabulous writer, but I'm a good writer. So at least I could get it on paper and then have somebody who was equally good or better, and in my case better, to just do some editing.
Yeah.
But but it's in my voice, and people who know me say that, and I know it is. There wasn't much that I had to edit because it was my story. So it's not like somebody can say, oh, if you insert a scene of this, it wasn't any of that. It was just being honest with me and saying, okay, you
Yeah.
don't need that much detail, or you need more detail.
Right.
And I think just having those eyes and that time schedule made the difference. Made the difference.
Yeah, I keep pondering like how much different book writing is going to be in the very near future with the way that AI and everything else is developing. I'm like, are people even going to write books in a few more years, or is it just going to
Yeah.
like happen? But I'm going to write them. I'm going to write this one while people are still writing books.
Okay.
So, and I know your book features all these like really cool, like heart of the matter life lessons in the chapters. Can you share some of your favorites with us?
Yeah, the one that we were talking about before, I said, leave juggling to the clowns, because we all think we can multitask, and multitask is one thing. Juggling, when you think no one is going to notice, that no one's going to catch on, and that you can keep juggling and keeping the balls in the air, you're wrong, because you're going to make yourself crazy, if not worse.
Yeah.
And we have to trust ourselves. And even if we think we're afraid to tell anybody, I'm going to drop this, I'm not going to do this, this is a new thing I'm going to do, and I can't do both, so this is my choice. Even if we're afraid of the reaction, we have to do it. We have to put our big girl pants on, our big boy pants on, and we just have to own what our heart, what our purpose is, and the decision that we've made. No use making a decision, not telling anybody else, and making yourself sick over it because you can't tell anybody else.
Right. I wish I had known earlier in life that it was safe to slow down.
Yeah.
That it wasn't all about hustle and grind and strive and,
Yeah.
get to the top as fast as you can kind of thing. And that it was
Yeah.
just safe to slow down and just
Yeah.
enjoy this one
Yeah.
precious life.
Right. Right. And fear, like you said before, feel the fear, do it anyway. And sometimes you just have to do it afraid.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, that really changed things for me, because people do things afraid. We do things afraid, and normal. Usually it doesn't kill us. Usually we survive. And if you know it's going to be painful, I think it releases some of the apprehension, a little of it at least. Okay, I understand. I accept. I'm still making the choice to do it. I know it's going to hurt, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to get on the other side. And I think it's better than trying to fool yourself and saying, it's not, I can handle it. Just know it. Do it afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the way that the Pajama Project started, how does it run these days? Like if we've got listeners that are thinking, I really want to give some pajamas to somebody, like how does this work these days?
Sure. Go to pajamaprogram.org, and there are chapters, probably one near most people. And there's the email for the chapter president. And you say exactly what you want to do. Hi, I'm here. I want to have a pajama drive. I want to donate. How can I get involved? What do you offer here in my town? And you'll get a reply. And if there's anything bigger than that, you certainly contact me and I'll make the right introduction. And you can find me, Genevieve, actually Jen at GenevievePiturro.com, or go to my website and just say, I'd like to be introduced if I have something I want to talk about.
That's awesome. That's so cool. What are your favorite ways to spread your message or work with people these days?
Well, speaking is my love. And I started doing that because people wanted to hear the story and the little girl. And I love telling it because it's what connected me first to me, those moments sitting on the floor with those kids. I never felt more grounded. It connected me most, I guess the real pivot was connecting me to her. And every time I told the story, I felt like I was channeling her and connecting to the person I was telling because it's so heartfelt. Those that question from her, there's no way to take it any way except straight from and to the heart.
Yeah.
Her innocent question that none of us would have ever in a million years imagined this little girl, that's what she was trying, to ask when she got up the courage, what are pajamas? And I think it's just so amazing how that story, and especially live, speaking live, can connect everybody in the room, everybody in the audience with me with everybody in the audience, and her as the channel. And it's just magic. It really is. It really is. Everybody feels her need. Maybe we all have that little loneliness in us, that little sadness in us.
Yeah.
Even if we have all the pajamas in the world, we resonate with that hole in her, with whatever's missing in her. I think we all have something that
or we
we
resonate
feel.
with what we feel is missing in our own selves and our own
Yeah,
lives at that time.
yeah, yes. So speaking in person, I love to do, and I love talking to people in person, and I love helping people find their purpose, and I love helping companies who, where the leaders are sincerely looking for a way to change the culture and really strengthen it, and are willing to ask. It's about asking others, what can we do for you?
Yeah. Mm, that's awesome. Have you ever followed up with, or do you have any idea what happened to the little girl that you talked to?
No, but there are others who I met, who were 2 or 3 years old, and we honored her. I was just looking at her picture, actually. I, I was just cutting it out because she was 2, and I have a picture of her holding up a pair of pajamas. And then when we turned, was it 18 or 20? Oh, 20. I invited her to come up, and I introduced, of course, everybody knew that the kids that I met early on were real little, and I showed a picture of her with her pajamas at age 2, and then I introduced her as a young lady going to college at age 18. And of course, you can imagine the applause. And she spoke about how she felt so loved and how she learned how to love reading, and from all the books that we gave her, and spending time over the years at our reading center when as she grew, from 2 years old through teens. And I mean, at that day, when you get to a point in your life, you say, I'm good now. I'm good. I feel like this is my best. This moment is my best moment. I don't know how I'm ever going to do any more for, to make God know I've done my best with what he gave me. That was definitely one of the top 2 or 3 that I've ever had to this day. And it was an amazing day, live, thankfully, with people.
Yeah, that sounds like it was for sure. How has this whole process, this program, this transformation helped you become more of who you feel like you're meant to be in this world?
I feel freer. I feel um I probably felt early on, I don't know if I would have used the word purpose. I learned purpose as I went from others who said, "Oh, you found your purpose." And I said, "Oh my goodness, I thought, Oprah had a purpose. I thought Einstein had a purpose. I thought Gandhi had a purpose. I didn't think all of us had a purpose, just the lucky ones. The rest of us, if we got a good job, we were, lucky." And I started realizing that everybody does have a purpose. And I knew that because people would come to me almost secretly, want to talk and sit down, and would tell me what they really want to be doing. And I'd sit there saying, okay, you're a CPA and you really want to be a ballet dancer. And they did. And they really wanted to be something else. And it was almost, they were like secretive. They just thought they'd come too far. Same thing I thought. And, some did make a move, some didn't. Some, responsibility gets in the way. Fear always gets in the way. I know that. And I know I didn't have a family and responsibilities, just my own mortgage. So I was a little luckier than some of them that I could. Plus I was obsessed. Yeah. So
That's what it takes to create a movement like you've created.
That's what I've heard. I have that gene because I keep jumping. I could have stayed as the executive director, but I felt compelled to share because I would share not just, oh, it's great. Once you find your purpose, oh my gosh, smooth sailing. The universe works. Everything comes to you. That's all you have to do is find your purpose. And, it's half that and it's half you're still going to be afraid. You're still going to be challenged. You're still not going to know what to do.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. It's part of it all. And I didn't want to paint a rosy picture. So I told them the truth. And my book is totally the truth. I mean, I was a horrible wife at the beginning because I promised to be, half a partner, half and half. And I didn't show up. I was, taking advantage of my husband driving me everywhere. We had one car living in New York and take me here. And he did a lot, he did most of it. And then I would carry on when I had a list and he was busy, and he couldn't take me. He couldn't shop with me. He couldn't help me carry these things. And, and it was hard and he stuck with it, but it wasn't easy. I wasn't, I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain, but he got it, so he gave me a lot of rope, but he probably wanted to strangle me.
I think anybody that's done any kind of passion project like this that has been so fulfilling has had their moments. I can say the same over here. So that's for sure. So don't beat yourself up about it, but that's awesome. What was it like to get Oprah's attention for doing what you do?
I was shocked because the producer called and I just like I'm doing now. I was married. I guess this started maybe a year before Oprah called. And my husband said to me, what would be a game changer? What do you need? Because I was struggling all the time. And for money, not in my purpose or with the kids or anything, but for covering the cost. And I said, well, getting on Oprah, everybody wants to get on Oprah. And he said, okay. And he taught me how to meditate. And he said, let's go to the bench in the park where we used to walk. And he taught me how to visualize and meditate. And I did not know. I mean, I'm a personality. Okay, maybe tomorrow I have stuff to do. I'm too busy. Can't sit here. Can't visualize. Everybody wants to be on Oprah. Blah, blah, blah. But he really, something came through to me and I did it. So I was shocked. But it only proved.
Did you just do it that one time, or did you start the practice?
And I put it on my vision board. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. I want to make sure we're not giving the wrong impression to anybody. That's I tried it once. And it didn't
not
work
a genie.
Yes.
No, and it doesn't always work, but it works more if you have it. If you do believe, and that's the whole thing. You have to believe, and you have to feel.
Yeah. That's aligned with the frequency of it over and over and over again until you actually match it.
That's exactly right, Theresa. That's exactly right. So she called the producer, and all of that universal help went out the window, and I just tried to sound like I wasn't a dodo bird. Just half of me was screaming in my brain, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" So, oh my God! And the other half was like, "Speak like an intelligent woman."
And I'm sure this was this pre TED Talk or post TED Talk?
This was pre.
Yeah, because it was when yeah. So you didn't have as much speaking training or experience or anything else. I think I would trip over my words no matter how trained I was if I was in that position.
Yeah, I was really trying to just calm myself, and I did. But I was fighting in my head, and my good side, shall we say, I was telling my other side to be quiet, and the other side was saying, you don't realize if you screw up, you're never going to get on. Now you have to be smart. You have to stay calm. And so I'm fighting, but I did a decent job. And they called several times. And finally, I asked, how did you hear about what I'm doing? And she said, people were writing in. So that was really nice to know. So I felt supported already. And then it took about 2.5 weeks of repeated calls and more questions. I didn't tell anyone, not my husband, no one. The last thing you want to do,
I'm not saying a word.
no, you don't want to tell people that they called you and that they didn't pick you. Don't want to do that. So I told no one. And finally she said, we're going to book you. And I said, can I tell my husband? And she laughed. She said, you haven't told him? I said, nope, I'll tell him tonight. And getting there's so many, I tell a lot of my stories in my book. And actually, this was the Sweet 16, April 3rd was the Sweet 16th year anniversary of being on Oprah. And I did a whole 13-day tribute on my social media.
Oh, cool.
On Instagram and Facebook. Every day I wrote a funny story, like behind the scenes story of getting on the show and all of this, and pictures that they let me use. So, and she let me put a picture in my book. So I was really touched and so grateful.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She has huge eyes that take you right in. And the same thing, I learned I have two sides that talk to me inside, my left and my right. And the left one's answering questions that she asked me, and the right one saying her eyes are so big. You could just like a tunnel, like it could be sucked right into her eyes. The other side was saying, yes, and then this happened, and then this happened in a nice, orderly way.
It's amazing how we can function when we need to.
It is. It's so funny.
Yes, I'm sure you were very proud of that moment, and as well you should be. That's so cool. Thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing so much of this with myself and the listeners. I really appreciate it, Genevieve.
Oh, it's totally it was so much fun, Theresa. And please, if anybody needs, to brainstorm some book stuff, let me know. I'd be happy to. And of course, that includes you, Theresa.
I really do appreciate that. And I will take you up on it.
Okay.
Where is the best place for our listeners to find out more about you? And
on my website, GenevievePiturro.com.
All right.
Or on social media. I'm everywhere.
Perfect. I'll make sure all that ends up in the show notes so that you guys can easily find Genevieve and the work that she's doing, and donate some pajamas if you're feeling the urge. I know I am after all those stories and everything else. Such a really, really cool purpose and mission and beautiful business that you have there. I love it. Thanks for being here, Genevieve. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.